Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, sorting out bowl business on the line this week for the Red Raiders, and also talking tread on the tires for a QB in the transfer portal. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks as always to those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, free and available, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. That's daily fantasy sports made easy with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to see you once again, my man. And we begin now to turn the page as we look ahead to what's coming up on a Red Raider front this week. Of course, you got a bit of a short holiday week with a kickoff Friday night. That's not the only thing on our minds as we roll through the next couple of days. Hang with us as we'll get you ready for some hoops as well. Day sports, as Chris alluded to on yesterday's episode. That's always fun. But on a football front, as we get into it here today, Chris, we're approaching also portal window. We've already had a big announcement here in Lubbock you see on the screen. We'll get into a Tyler Shough discussion. We'll also talk about what's on the line as far as bowl fate with a win or a loss potentially here this week. But one of the bigger headlines heading into the next ball game, Chris, I think had to once again, and I hate to beat a familiar drum or a dead horse or whatever again, but it's the injury report, and it's because of the heavy hitters that were included in it. Unfortunately, last week on Senior Day, we saw some of our favorites leaving the field, and that was one of the things that Coach McGuire discussed in his weekly press conference to kick off this week. Guys like Miles Price, Jalen Hutchings, Rabbit, Tyler Owens, among some others, and it kind of seemed like a gamut of, yeah, good to go, or maybe this is going to be a day of or game time kind of decision. So tell me where you want to begin, man, because these are obviously some foundational pieces we're talking about rolling into the regular season finale.
I'll tell you where I want to begin, and that's, man, I wish the NCAA would pass the rule that you're just allowed to play 5 years and you don't worry about the whole redshirt designation. You just get 5 years to get after it, because it's basically right now it's 4.5, because the first guy that I'll talk about that I know for a fact you're going to be without on Friday night is Jacob Rodriguez. Yeah. That stings. That is not ideal, but it is what it is. Is you're thinking big picture, they're going to sit him out to maintain his redshirt year, and he will be able to play in the bowl game, and then obviously he'll get 2 full years left to play instead of just 1 more year, which that's worth it. Again, though, in the immediate, that sucks as you're trying to go against a very good Texas team. As far as injuries go, Cowan, yeah, I think some of the guys that missed last week, and I bring up, Jacob, because Bryce Ramirez, I think, will now be back this week. He joins that linebacker rotation, and so you'll have Ben Roberts, Josiah Pierre, and Bryce Ramirez kind of in that rotation. So Ramirez in, Rodriguez out. As far as wide receivers go, yeah, Miles Price will be back in there. I still think you want to highlight Xavier White some. And then Tyler Owens. It was scary to me last week as we talked about the Knights' speed for Central Florida, and just one of the fastest teams you were going to play, similar to skill speed than what Oregon has, what Texas will have this weekend. And Tyler Owens is arguably the fastest player on your team. And so thankfully he should be back this week. I think Joey McGuire even hinted at, man, if we'd have played this past weekend on a Sunday, he probably would have been able to go, but just wasn't quite ready to roll. But he'll be back this week, and you'll desperately need it up close to the line of scrimmage. I will say that, Brendan Jordan and Cam Watts did a really good job up front in that star position for the most part, around the perimeter and all those things. But Tyler Owens should be back and good to go. So those are some of the guys that are back. And then you hit on a bunch of names right there that I think Jalen Hutchings is going to play. At what percentage is he? I don't know. I think Rabbit is going to try to give it a go. Being a groin injury and which is what Joey talked about, that's a bit tricky when you're in open field and you got to open up and run, especially when you're talking about, Xavier Worthy and Sanders, the tight end, and they've got the Alabama transfer that the other wideout spot. I mean, it's just a nightmare trying to stop these guys or slow them down. And so we'll see what he can do. But man, that's not ideal. But I think you'll have an opportunity for them to play. So we'll see. I don't think. Speaking of speed on the edge, I don't think you're going to get Steve Linton back. I just don't know if he's quite there yet. I do think bowl game wise, like he and Cole Spencer, obviously Jacob Rodriguez, certainly Jalen and Rabbit, if they can't go a lot this week, you would think you'd have them for whatever bowl opportunity that is. But that's kind of a rundown on the injury front, I think.
I kind of took it. I got to be honest. I kind of took it when I heard Coach McGuire talking about it, and as we sit here and discuss it, to be a little bit more positive than I anticipated. I was actually a little encouraged by some of what I heard, I guess, because everybody knows it. If you follow Tech throughout the year, these are some key cogs, right, in the machinery. So going into the biggest regular season game that you've had, certainly emotionally, if not otherwise, would love to have them on the field.
Yeah, well, and you get, and I didn't want to gloss over this, but I thought I think you see immediately how big of an impact Mason Tharp could have.
Yeah, no doubt. We're talking about some of the here and now as it pertains to this week, but we know that the big picture will begin to change as well, Chris, in some days and weeks to come, as we've got a transfer portal window opening up, and we've already had a significant announcement here in Lubbock. We will get some more, I'm sure, and some may be anticipated. I don't know. There may be some surprises as well, but I've probably heard by now Tyler Shough announcing his intention to enter the transfer portal, and a couple of different fronts, of course, to hit with you, Chris. First, today's episode brought to you by Prize Picks, the most exciting way to test your skills and play daily fantasy sports, and a great way to add juice to any game anytime. And if you've got the game, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories are just part of what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, right now, Prize Picks is going to match your first deposit up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Tyler Shough announcing his intention to enter the transfer portal, and a couple of different fronts, of course, to hit with you, Chris. Kind of wondering about timing, wondering about whether this has been a formality all along, also wondering about the continuation of his football career. Does it have to happen on a college level? Is it better suited to pursue whatever he's got to pursue on the professional level? So when you see this news come across and you begin to think about Tyler Shough's future, where do you begin that conversation, and what do you actually see for him?
Yeah, I think I wish him nothing but the best. I know people have their opinions on one quarterback over the other. It's just it's one of those things where it just didn't ultimately work out here, and not for any lack of trying on his part or no attitude or bad play or anything. It just he couldn't stay healthy, and I think so. When he went down, I think we all knew he could get a medical red shirt, which is exactly what he may be planning to do, and play one more year in college before. And somebody, again, if he can stay healthy, that's going to be the caveat. That's what we talked about all summer. They'll get a hell of a quarterback in a one-year scenario, and I think. If you're Texas Tech, because there's a lot of dynamics at play here. The portal window doesn't open until December the 4th, But as you can kind of see off in the distance, it's like that is it's kind of like, NBA free agency, right? It's like the clock strikes midnight. Okay, everybody's allowed to sign elsewhere. Then it's like one deal is announced right after the other. It's like 25 deals are announced. You're like, wait a second. Yeah. We just got to the, there's a lot of legwork done ahead of time. There's a lot of, I think the term in the industry is like back channels or, whatever. One school can't contact the player, but we can sure call his high school coach. We can call mom or dad. We can have somebody contact them and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's going on in every aspect all across the sport. That's the nature of the beast. And I think if you're Tyler, you look at it from a Texas Tech standpoint, I think it was just not going to be an option for him to come back here. I think you're ready to hand the reins over to Behren Morton. I think that he's 5-0 as a starter this year on games that he started and finished. I think that's right. Either 4-0 or 5-0. I think it's his time now. And I think you're ready to kind of hand the reins to the program over to him. And it was just going to be kind of wonky if you get, Shough back. And I just don't know that just wasn't going to be a good dynamic. I think that had run its course. And I think it's just time. So I think if you're Texas Tech, you say, man, we will do whatever we can to help you, but this just doesn't make sense here anymore. And there was a time when it did, and all those things, but it's just that time has since passed. I just hope for Tyler that he finds himself a great spot. I also hope that it's not necessarily in the Big 12. Again, that's me being selfish, but I don't want to have to play against the guy, and it's an awkward scenario. But I hope he finds and I think he makes this announcement early enough with his intent to enter the portal, so you can start some of those conversations. Because he's going to want to be wherever it is that he's going to be quickly and soon, and start learning an offense and start learning a coordinator and lingo and whatever it may be, and just kind of wants to see what options are available to him. He won't lack for suitors. I promise you that. He will not lack for suitors. My guess is he'll try to find a spot where he can go in and be the starter. There will be plenty of opportunities for him, whether it be Power 5 or Group of 5, that will give him that opportunity and essentially kind of promise him that starting spot, and he'll wow people whenever he talks to them. That's just who he is. So there's that. I think there's kind of a what's best for Shough, what's best for Tech, and I think that, what's best is kind of what's happening. But again, there's no hard feelings here. It just didn't work out. Last time I talked to Tyler, I think that he'll get his cast off in like a couple of weeks. I think he should be close to, full go and in mid-March, and by the time spring rolls around for most teams. But and then the last thing I'll bring up on this is, and I want to make this clear, you're going to go bring in multiple quarterbacks in the offseason, and I'm not talking about Will Hammond. Okay, you're not going to go at it with Behren Morton, Jake Strong, and Will Hammond next year. You will add to that mix. And I say add to that mix in that you're going to bring in somebody that you think can play. I don't want to say push Behren, but will kind of make things interesting there. It is Behrens' job, in my opinion. So I don't want to confuse it, but you're also going to bring in, they've offered, there's a junior college kid out of DeSoto that plays at a junior college in Kansas, big kid, like 6'3", 220, can run it some. I think you would love to have him in your. He's got some Group of 5 offers, and so you will add to this room. It's not going to be, just like I said, Behren and then Jake and Will Hammond in that order, and then okay, here we go, guys. Let's go get ready for the season. I think you've determined you need more in that room. You don't want to have to lean on a true freshman anymore. You want to push, and you maybe want a little bit of a different dynamic and style of player as well. Maybe one that's slants more toward a runner with some size. So I want to make sure that I pass that along too, because there's a lot of layers here to Tyler Shough exiting and his intent to enter the portal.
Do you think it was a difficult decision for Shough to continue to pursue more college time versus saying, hey, I'm just going to go after whatever I can professionally? Because, so far it's like he hasn't been able to really dot that resume with that final great extended season. I get that from a professional standpoint, but also the experience has been marred by injury and setback. So just as a fan, I would kind of wonder if a guy like that would think, you know what, I'm not going to do another college season. I just got to go after what I can go after professionally. But he has the opportunity, it sounds like, clearly with the medical redshirt and things like that, to play it. So is that a no-brainer to go for another college year, or how do you think that decision was made?
I don't necessarily know what NFL, I guess feedback he's gotten based on the limited, because I've seen people like Tech fans react, and like, I've seen some like good riddance talk, and I mean, man, folks, I mean, he beat Oklahoma last year. He beat Ole Miss. He was the MVP in that game. He ran out the clock versus Iowa State through a big. I mean, he did some good things here, and I mean, he's a good player when he stays healthy. I think so. Somebody's going to get themselves a really good quarterback. Again, it just comes back to being healthy, and can he? Has he put enough on tape from the NFL folks to go, hey man, you're ready, let's go, or hey, we need to see it. We need to see you stay injury free. We need to see more from you before we have a good decision to make on you as a draft prospect and all those things. I think, though, what ultimately, to answer your question, what kind of changes the dynamic here a bit is NIL. I mean, I think he can go almost, guarantee himself some revenue or some income, however you want to phrase that, and then get one more year and try to show his durability or what he can put on tape and all those things. He's going to get a chance in the NFL. That is a fact. His measurables and his mindset and some of the things that he can do are just hard to find. And his smarts and IQ and all that kind of stuff. And he's a legit 6'3 plus, 225, 230. Those guys are just not – there's just not a lot of guys like that running around out there. And so, but I think the NIL aspect, it makes the college return a little more enticing if you're him personally.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think it's going to be very easy to wish him well. And he was a part of some big wins, and even when he wasn't a part of big wins, he was showing a lot of toughness. So only respect and admiration, at least for me as a Tech fan, for what Tyler Shough gave you, and hopefully some good things coming up for him in a land far, far away. Yeah, I don't want to see you on a schedule or anywhere in the region. You never know in this day and age where a guy can land, obviously, as ease of movement is the theme of the day as far as student-athlete transfers. Okay, before we're out of here, something else to follow, obviously, as we get into the final week of the regular season. And, pardon me, a little new at this year. We're freshly bowl eligible. No, you guys have been watching some bowl projections for what, months now in some other places? We just got hot copy here in the LBK, all right? We're planning on making postseason plans. So we got to pay attention to this now. And Chris, a few of these have been projected already. And I guess in general, I can give you some of what's already been reported out there. And then I got a question for you. But you've seen things like the Independence Bowl, the Armed Forces Bowl. You've seen opponents like Air Force, Syracuse, Coastal Carolina. The dust will settle. We'll figure out where we're going to go. But I'm really more curious as it relates to this final regular season game. Is there something on the line as far as a bowl slot or allotment for Texas Tech? Are they already destined to a certain category? What's still kind of out there left to be decided? First, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And these days, every new hire can feel like a huge gamble. And when we're talking about your business or livelihood, that's not ideal. But never fear, LinkedIn Jobs is here to help by finding the best qualified candidates available fast and for free, all on one easy-to-use and secure platform. With simple but specific targeting tools allowing you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to consider. They go beyond just resume data by using insights from your job post, your company, and their 870 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates faster than anyone else. So go to LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege today to identify the most qualified candidates and connect with them fast and for free. Just like a bad hire could sink your ship, the right hire could take your business to new heights. this year. And it's no coincidence that small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So post your job for free today at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. It's so easy. Even a Big 12 ref could do it. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. As far as a bowl slot or allotment for Texas Tech, are they already destined to a certain category? What's still kind of out there left to be decided?
Yeah, so there's so many things that factor into how bowls are put together. One of the things is that in one way you would help your own situation with a win on Friday night versus Texas. However, you would really hurt the league's overall bowl pecking order because Texas still has a chance to be in the college football playoff. I don't know if they win Friday night and they beat either Oklahoma State or Oklahoma or Kansas State, if that's going to be enough to put. It's going to depend on what else happens. Michigan and Ohio State and some of these other league title games and just big games in leagues and things. But if they end up in the college football playoff, everybody in the Big 12 kind of moves up a spot. Whereas if they don't make it, they end up in a New Year's Six bowl, and then everybody kind of maintains the regular order. So it's kind of from a bowl pecking order standpoint. Although I'll try to win on Friday night and let the chips fall where they may. Don't care. just giving you some context.
Sure.
If you don't win Friday night, I do think most likely it's Independence in Shreveport or it's Fort Worth for the Armed Forces. Those are the two Saturdays before Christmas, the 16th and the 23rd. ESPN owns all these bowl games. They've really tried to stack December the 16th and December the 23rd because they are Saturdays, and you can kind of put these games on and give them their own exclusive windows and things like that. And then obviously after Christmas comes and goes, then you start really rolling with those nights after that, leading into New Year's and New Year's Eve and all that. If you win, again, knowing that you've kind of hurt the whole league and dropped it down a bit, I do think you enter into a different equation because you will have won 4 in a row. You will have had the biggest win of anybody in the league the entire year. I would say, as far as a conference game, just beating Texas at their place.
Yeah.
I think you enter into a conversation where you potentially Phoenix the day after Christmas. I think they're the one in Orlando, which is now, I think, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I think that maybe the Liberty Bowl again in Memphis kind of enters. So it's kind of that those are kind of the dynamics there. And I can't really pin it down yet. Win here, lose there. I mean, it's not really there yet. There's too many things that factor in. I think that, again, a loss versus Texas, though, in Shreveport or Fort Worth, those bowls would be thrilled to have you because of your proximity to the Metroplex, because Shreveport's 2 hours away from Dallas. It's on a Saturday. And again, I think a lot of, obviously Metroplex fans and with your fan base and your alums in the Metroplex, that would be a good. And then obviously in Fort Worth, you're right there on the 23rd. The interesting thing about the 16th, though, is if you do play in Shreveport, that game kicks off, I think, at like either 7:15 or 8:15, I believe, at night. You're scheduled to play basketball in Fort Worth against Vanderbilt at Dickies Arena on the 16th as well. That would be an interesting kind of, because schools go out of their way to ensure that football and men's basketball specifically are not playing at the same time, if you can help it. And that may be one that maybe a Tech fan's dream or nightmare, depending on how you look at it. But that's what looks likely right now, Calvin. And again, we have to figure out the other results of these other games. BYU needs to pull off an upset to get bowl eligible. TCU is going to have to pull off an upset to get bowl eligible. Those two teams are playing in the state of Oklahoma this weekend against Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, respectively. So, but you've got a lot of available teams. I think you're at 7 or 8 right now entering this weekend. So but you're getting to play another game, and your signees should be a part of it. Some of your early enrollees, and with the portal, and your roster could look a little bit different. But these practices and then a bowl game was huge.
Did I mistake something, or it seemed like Coach McGuire was kind of describing how obviously if you're playing on the 16th versus say the 26th, there are some additional practices for the signees or everybody involved. So maybe you're rooting for something later on or.
Yeah. So because this is all new. They've changed some ruling to where when you have early enrollees, they are now allowed to participate in some of your bowl prep. They can't play in that game, but just getting them. Tennessee did this with one of their quarterback signees last year, and I just think the more you can get them in the machine and see how you do things and ease them into things, the quicker, the better off they are. This involves Will Hammond, Micah Hudson. You've got 11 of them in total.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. I think signing day for those guys is technically on December the 20th or whatever. But I think if you finished up class, if you've gotten a physical, if you put down a deposit, if you've enrolled, and I say finish up class in high school, if you've enrolled in your college classes, I think there's some gray area to where you can show up much earlier than actual signing date. Again, if you've signed.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that would eliminate a lot of drama for a lot of those early enrollees. But I think the later that bowl game is, the more they'll be able to participate. But even if you play on the 16th of December, I still think they're going to get a handful of workouts, and those are all huge.
Yeah, maybe a little difference if you're kicking it off, say, as you mentioned, in the Pop-Tart or the Liberty Bowl, December 28th, 29th versus the 16th.
The best Pop-Tart, by the way, is frosted blueberry. I'm just going to throw that down right there.
You will get no argument from me because I take no stand on Pop-Tart flavors, at least at this point in my life. My only concern a little bit, I see Shreveport on the list. Am I mistaken, or is that not where you had a lightheaded spell on a riverboat once upon a time? Was it Shreveport? It's just a fainting spell, like a lightheadedness or something.
It was gin and tonics.
Or that.
I kept the little stir sticks. Yeah, there was a lot of that's 20, 25 years ago.
We almost lost Chris to Shreveport once upon a time, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was and I haven't had a gin and tonic since then.
So if we're headed to Shreveport again, just keep an eye on big, handsome Chris Level. We want him back again, Shreveport. Thanks for turning him loose the first time, and do it again this time. But I don't know. We'll see what happens because there's still a few moving parts, it sounds like, with a win or a loss, and then depending on what some of your colleagues in the Big 12, which I do not give one damn about as a fan regarding bowl allotment. So I'm glad you gave us that context so I could throw it right out the window and forget all about it as I move on very selfishly as a Texas Tech fan. All right, move on throughout the week with us. Hope to see you tomorrow. We'll get you set for a Thanksgiving Eve primer. We're going to be setting the table for some hoops as well. The battle for Atlantis almost upon us. And, of course, getting ready for Red Raiders and Longhorns. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss a thing. Chris, thanks for the time, and we'll see you for the next one.
Enjoyed it, man. Keep hope alive, everybody.
You got it, and hope to see you back here also for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.